Hello and welcome to coverage of Pro Tour Eldritch Moon. I'm Gabby Sparks, joined here by R&D member Ian Duke. Ian, how are we doing?
Doing great.
Awesome. And we are ready for more magic here. You know, everybody was expecting Band Company this weekend, and we actually have a lot of cool new decks, and a lot of them that we're going to be showcasing this round. Our players are ready to go, so let's head down to the feature match. Hello and welcome back to coverage of Pro Tour Eldritch Moon and Gabby Sparks, joined by Ian Duke. And here we are getting ready to take a look at Reid Duke versus Matt Sperling. There's Reid, none other than your brother.
That's right.
Older or younger?
He's younger.
He's your younger brother?
Actually, yep.
So Lil Bro battling with Red-Green Delirium ramp today, the 4-time Grand Prix title winner. Impressive. On the right, we have Matt Sperling. Matt Sperling's brought Black-Green Delirium to the table. Any idea what this deck looks like or what it's trying to do?
Yeah, there are a bunch of different shades of Black-Green Delirium. It seems like each team, or even each player in some cases, has brought their own mix of cards.
And our players are underway. Here we go. This is round 5 at Pro Tour Eldritch Moon. Game Trail for Reid as a land to start out. Evolving Wilds for Matt. So Ian, do you have any idea how this matchup's supposed to go? These are pretty much brand new decks. I don't know how familiar you are with Reid's list.
Well, Reid never tells me what he plays before a tournament, so I actually just found out like 10 minutes ago. I chatted with him a little bit to get the scoop on his list. Basically, the idea is Team Pantheon, Reid's team, they played around with a lot of different Emrakul decks, and one of the ones that some members of the team chose to play was a black-green deck. On the other side, some of them tried to go a little bit bigger than that and play a rampier game. Some are playing, we saw Owen last round with Teamer Emerge is what we called it, right, with Kozilek's Return, a bunch of big Eldrazi. Reid has actually chosen sort of the cleaner route here, which is just to play almost an old-school red-green ramp deck that has a little bit of effort put into stocking the graveyard and getting additional card types in there to get Emrakul out a little bit faster.
And that's exactly what he's doing here. He leads off with Nissa's Pilgrimage, getting a couple forests out of his deck.
So the way I'd characterize this matchup is I think Matt Sperling is the aggressor here in that I think Reid has the stronger late game and Matt has more proactive things to do a little bit earlier in the game. He's probably going to want to try to do something like get some mid-range threats into play like Hangerback Walker, Nissa Vastwood Seer. Maybe a Mind Rack Demon is a great way to apply pressure to a ramp deck and hopefully close the game out before Reid can ramp up and do bigger things.
And Mind Rack Demon is a card I heard you mention earlier. Is this a card that you at R&D were looking into maybe making more of an appearance this weekend?
It was in the sense that we thought the Black-Green Delirium deck was a little bit weak, a little under the surface coming with just Shadows over Innistrad, but when you add in all the Eldritch Moon cards and you get things like Grapple with the Past and Ishkana and Emrakul herself, that the Delirium decks actually become really strong now. And we expected to see kind of a variety of different Delirium decks, and so far, looks like things are playing out that way.
So Sperling's going to transgress the mind, taking a look at Reid's hand. Looks like Nissa's Pilgrimage, Fiery Impulse, a couple of lands, a Nissa, and Gather the Pack.
Yeah, Gather the Pack is actually a card we haven't seen much. It came out in Magic Origins, but it is one of the best Delirium enablers. So if you're brewing up your own Delirium deck, I'd definitely recommend looking at Gather the Pack.
Yeah, you guys got to see a couple of decks last round with Gather the Pack in it.
That and Grapple with the Past, two of the big Delirium enablers so far here this weekend.
Was there a specific kind of deck that you expected from R&D? Did you guys think that Delirium was going to be a big shower here this weekend?
We were hoping it would be. We were hoping some form of Delirium would be, but the tricky thing about the Delirium decks is they're almost like graveyard toolbox decks, and there's a lot of different ways to build them. So we weren't sure which would be the strongest version of it or which players would bring here this weekend, but we expected some form of Delirium. Yeah.
So Liliana, the Last Hope, is a draw for Matt. Reid plays Anissa, gets a land, and passes the turn.
So I would say things looking pretty good for Reid here. He has the Hedron Archive and Nissa Vastwood Seer. He's ramping up quite nicely, hasn't stumbled at all. Matt, on the other side of the table, looks like he's off to a pretty slow start. Isn't really able to land anything too impactful just yet.
He did have the Hissing Quagmire, which is unfortunately a tap land on that turn, but now he has 4 mana unlocked. Let's see what he can put together. Sperling considering his options this turn.
We'll take a peek at Matt's hand. Looks like he's got a couple more lands. So Traverse the Ulvenwald, Liliana. I mean, Liliana would be okay here, but not really super impactful. Looks like he instead goes for a Languish just to take out that Nissa before she's able to transform.
So nice sequence there for Sperling. Clears out Reid's board, but he still has to deal with what you mentioned earlier. Something like this, an Ulvenwald Hydra is the play for Reid. And this Hydra's big.
Yeah, it sure is. That's kind of a little bit of a surprise here, too. This is a card we haven't really seen much in Standard thus far, but it's a card Reid's playing 1 copy of. It's a nice, huge, fat creature. It can block flyers, which is relevant, and it's just a lot bigger than what some of the other decks are doing. So,
Here we get to take a look at Ulvenwald Hydra over on the right. 6 mana star. Hedron Crawler for Reid.
Now, one cool thing about Ulvenwald Hydra is it can actually search out any land, including a non-basic, and Reid has some interesting things to get, like Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, which can help him ramp into Big Eldrazi, like Emrakul, a little bit faster.
Getting a score update from one of our back tables. Luis Scott Vargas is up a game over Yuichi Ichikawa.
So back now here on Matt's turn, staring down a rather large 7/7 Ulvenwald Hydra.
Traverse. Okay.
So it looks like Matt does have 2 Grasp of Darknesses in hand, so he can take care of this Ulvenwald Hydra if he wants to. It is just going to be very expensive.
Yeah, it's not really where Matt wants to be in this matchup at this stage of the game.
And he doesn't even have the lands to do it right now. He tutored for a swamp right now.
Okay.
So he will be able to. Well, like you said, not exactly what he wants to be doing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, just in the sense that he's sort of on the back foot now. He's the one reacting to Reid's threats. Matt would much rather be in the spot where, he has his own Nissa in play that's threatening to transform soon, maybe a Mind Rack Demon chipping through in the air, but things not really looking like they're shaping up according to plan for Matt Sperling here. Adds Liliana, the Last Hope, to the table. Takes out the Hedron Crawler, which slows down Reid's ramping a little bit, but of course the Liliana may just be taken out by the Ulvenwald Hydra this turn anyway.
Yeah, and Gather the Pack here is going to continue drawing gas for Reid, revealing top 5. He finds a Sylvan Advocate, so only 1 creature. Sylvan Advocate looking pretty good on this board, though.
Yeah, indeed. Just a nice big threat, and Reid may have another play as well. See if we can take a peek at Reid's hand. Nope, looks like he's just added the Sylvan Advocate to a hand of Forest and Fiery Impulse, which not particularly useful here. So Reid now just needs to decide, is he going to bother attacking that Liliana or not? It's actually kind of tempting to just hit Matt for a bunch of damage. That might make the difference in the clock. So Reid plays his 8th land here. If he attacks Matt, Matt goes down to 12. Which would make the Sylvan Advocate lethal next turn. The only problem there is that Liliana will actually give one of those creatures -2 power. So doesn't allow him to present lethal next turn, provided Matt ticks up his Liliana. But on the other hand, this in a way sort of denies Matt the use of his Liliana because he can only just make her tick up again in order to survive and doesn't get to actually use her card advantage ability. So pretty smart play there by Reid.
Get 1 card. Yep.
All right, so Matt's going to have to piece something very good here. Taking a look at his hand, a Traverse the Ulvenwald, a Grasp of Darkness, 2 of them, and a Ruinous Path. So Matt does have Delirium online, meaning that any creature in his deck is something that he could get with Traverse, so he needs something pretty good to stop this oncoming attack.
Yeah, I mean, one option would be to Traverse for something like Ishkana, but it looks like Matt's taking the safer route here and just casts Ruinous Path on the Ulvenwald Hydra, which I totally agree with. And then uses Grasp of Darkness combined with Liliana's weakness ability, her -2/-1, to take out the Sylvan Advocate.
There we can take a look at Ruinous Path that took care of the Ulvenwald Hydra. And this is one of the cool things about Liliana, right? But when you guys designed this card from R&D is this is kind of what you had in mind, pairing her up with all the other minus effects or ways to deal damage.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely works well in combination with other black effects like Languish, like Grasp of Darkness. But also what's cool about Liliana is that she's a little bit more of a directional planeswalker, Gabby. She actually invites you to play her in a graveyard-based deck, which is something we really want to encourage with Eldritch Moon and Shadows over Innistrad. So it looks like the game is stabilized a little bit here. Matt Sperling able to make short work of Reid's threats, and Reid now looking for some more action to follow things up with.
He didn't find anything too good. He just has a Hedron Crawler right now. Hedron Crawler Fiery Impulse is currently his hand.
5 damage to Liliana.
Oh, Dragonlord Atarka is actually going
Alright.
to change this dramatically. Dragonlord Atarka finishing off that Liliana, and now we have 8/8 Flample on the board.
You're on the Flample train as well. Marshall
yeah.
has gotten you on board.
The Flample train is definitely a thing, so we just gotta make sure we get everybody on it. Mind Rack Demon is a play for Matt.
Another Flample creature.
Another
actually.
Flample creature.
Yeah.
Eldritch Moon is so spooky, all these flying tramplers.
Traverse.
Traverse with Delirium means that Matt gets to use his deck as a toolbox. Let's see what he wants to get. That looks like Emrakul to me.
All right, so things getting pretty scary on both sides of the table here. Reid with an 8/8 flyer on the battlefield, but Matt Sperling threatening an Emrakul here pretty soon.
That's correct.
A little bit difficult to get a casting cost count on Emrakul. We'll try to get you updated with that pretty soon, but looks like Matt does have 6 lands on the battlefield, and with that cost reduction is probably hoping to get Emrakul into play within the next, 2-3 turns maybe.
Take Emrakul. Yep.
The Vessel of Nascency.
And looks like Reid found an Emrakul of his own, and Gabby, it looks to me like Reid is situated to actually get his Emrakul online faster than Matt. So in comes Dragonlord Atarka for 8 points of damage. And definitely a big clock on Matt Sperling to see if he can deal with this
and here-
Emrakul. Okay,
and
Reid's
here-
counting things up.
yeah,
Looks like the
here's-
Emrakul actually comes out this turn.
Wow. That vessel was huge for Reid.
Yeah, it sure was.
And Matt's not that close. We got word that he's five different card types in the graveyard, so he's not actually that close to being able to cast Emrakul.
Attack with Mind Rack Demon, block with Emrakul.
All right, so Reid controlling Matt for this turn. He's just casting his spells and causing as much havoc as possible. And that's going to do it. Reid's going to take this game 1-0 over Matt Sperling. That was a crazy game.
Yeah, it
Battling
sure was.
Emrakuls. We've seen so many Emrakuls in the feature match area, and we might see some more, but we'll see right after these messages.
Ready to take your game to the next level and start on the path to the Pro Tour? Rise to the challenge and test your skills at a local preliminary Pro Tour qualifier. To find an event near you, visit magic.wizards.com/pptq. Outfit your Magic collection with the newest Eldritch Moon accessories from Ultra Pro. You can see the full array of card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and portfolios of your favorite Magic artwork at ultrapro.com.
Hello and welcome back to coverage of Pro Tour Eldritch Moon. We are moving on to one of our back matches. We'll take a look back at Reid and Sperling and see what they're doing just a little bit later. But currently we're going to take a look at Jeremy Dazani versus Shaheen Sarani. So Jeremy is playing white-black control, and Shaheen Sarani is playing black-green Delirium. And we don't know exactly what kind of Delirium build this is, but as you mentioned, there's a lot of different ways to build it. This is still currently game 1 for the players.
Yeah, these white-black control decks, another popular archetype here this weekend, Gabby. Some of them often playing things like Thalia's Lancers for, legendary creature packages like Bruna and Gisela. Others just going more heavy on the Planeswalkers. There's actually a lot of different directions you can take the black-white decks as well.
Dazani is 18 versus Shaheen Sarani at 2 after that attack. And my oh my, we have so many Planeswalkers on the board. It looks like Obnixilis and Sorin for Jeremy Dazani. Looks like this game's not long. It's not going to be going on for too long.
Zani playing an Oath of Nissa,
Nissa
doesn't
and
find what he needs.
Doesn't find what he needs. Picks up his cards. It looks like Jeremy up 1-0 versus Shaheen Sarani. An update from one of our back tables. Luis Scott Vargas takes the match versus Yuichi Ichikawa 2-0. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take a look at what they are at their match, but in the meantime, we will do a live looking at one of our other back tables. Looks like all of our players are shuffling currently, so we will look at one of our players whenever they're ready.
So definitely some pretty cool decks so far here this weekend, Gabby. I had a chance to talk to some of the players out there on the field, as it were. And one of the comments I got was, seemed like there wasn't really a consensus on what the best deck was. I mean, obviously, Bant Company is sort of the boogeyman coming into the weekend here, and no doubt it's a super strong deck. I don't think anyone will contest that. But what I heard from a lot of players was, if you were just coming in playing like last month's deck or a couple weeks ago's deck, and you hadn't made any changes to adjust to the Pro Tour metagame, that you would be at a huge disadvantage here. So I think we're definitely seeing an evolution of the standard format, from what we've seen in the past couple weeks. And these players have put a lot of thought into sort of trying to next level each other and think about how to go over the top of one another. And I think that's what we see with these Delirium decks that are going all the way up to Emrakul, is that you really need to be doing something big in this format.
One of the cool things that we got to do over the last couple of days is talk to the players, see what they're bringing, and that was definitely the consensus, right? It seems like everybody around the world is taking a look at this Pro Tour and saying, okay, we know Bant Company. This is the deck that we know and we expect. We know Spell Queller is an amazing new addition to the deck, and for that reason, it's making all the different versions of Bant Company coalesce around Spell Queller. But it seems like a lot of the teams have been able to find different ways to fight it, right? A lot of ways to go over the top, cards that cost more than 4 mana, ways to get around Spell Queller, and they're going big, right? They're dealing with a graveyard. They're going over with cards that cost 5, going as big as Emrakul. So it's been really cool to see the kinds of decks that people have brought to the table in order to fight Bant. And so far, we haven't even seen it that much in the feature match area.
Yeah, there's definitely quite a bit of Bant here this weekend. I want to say order of like 20%-ish is Bant Company, but obviously that means 80% of the field did not bring that deck, right? And there's a variety of other things going on here as well. So, yeah, curious to see how the weekend shakes out and what ends up doing really well at the top tables.
That seemed to be one of the discussions that the players also had, is if they played a deck that was very good against Bant Company, it seemed like it was very bad against some of the other control decks in the field. So it's a fine line to draw between, hey, I want to beat the deck that I know is a deck to beat in the room, versus I want to play something that can actually win the Pro Tour. Our players are underway here. Reid Duke versus Matt Sperling. Remember, Reid is currently up a game against Matt. Hissing Quagmire for Matt, and the Game Trail for Reid.
Sure.
Traverse the Ulvenwald for Sperling. Couldn't find him that swamp. And pass back to Reid.
Yeah, showcasing one of the strengths of Traverse the Ulvenwald. I know it seems silly to say, but you can just fire it off on turn 1 or 2 to find a land. I actually think Matt mulliganed to 6 this game and kept a 1-lander on the strength of having Traverse the Ulvenwalds in his hand. So just really nice to have a card that can do double duty as either fixing your mana early or finding a threat later in the game.
Looks like the draw for Reid was she herself, Emrakul, the big one.
I'll search for a forest.
Nissa is a play for Reid. Get a land out of his deck and a pass back to Matt.
Grapple. Yep.
Grapple with a pass for Matt. Oh, and Mindwreck Demon is a very nice pickup for him here.
Yeah, that's actually, I think, just the start that Matt Sperling is looking for in this matchup here. Stocking the graveyard a little bit, adding a Mindwreck Demon, stocking the graveyard even more. And this will put some nice pressure on Reid, and as well as giving Matt some options heading into the late game.
Oh, thank you.
There we can take a look at Mindwreck Demon. 4 mana, 4/5, Flying Trample. Pretty easily enables Delirium by itself. We'll get a check and see if Matt has Delirium, but had about 8 cards in the graveyard, so doesn't seem like he'll be taking a lot of damage from this. Hedron Archive for Reid and a pass back to Matt.
16.
So we have an instant sorcery and a land so far, so Matt's going to be taking some damage from this Mindwreck Demon unless he can do something this turn. seems kind of impossible to not have Delirium with that many lands in the yard.
Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at Matt's options here in his hand. He's got another Traverse the Elven Wald, To the Slaughter, Double Dark Petition, and Evolving Wilds. Unfortunately, Evolving Wilds effectively coming into play tapped here. Doesn't allow him to cast Dark Petition this turn, but in future turns, that should really open a lot of great options for Matt.
Matt coming in with a Mind Rack Demon, dropping Reid down to 16. Looks like 3 mana, and this is a card. You mentioned this earlier. That's something that I don't think a lot of people were expecting it, but it's been doing a lot of good work. Grapple with the pass?
Really
or sorry,
interesting.
to the slaughter.
To the Slaughter, yeah. We'll see if we can bring up To the Slaughter for you folks there. But basically, if you have Delirium, this can take out a creature and a planeswalker of your opponents. And what's really cool, Gabby, is it costs 3 mana, so they can actually just have 1 copy of this in their deck, and it's something they can Dark Petition for, and then spend that triple black mana on, which is very, very cool.
Looks like Matt's going to see if Reid potentially plays another Planeswalker into that, wants to get a little bit more value out of that To that Slaughter.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like we might see things play out such that Reid transforms Nissa and then plays a big creature like a Dragon Lord Atarka or something, in which case Matt could really, really punish him with To the Slaughter.
Reid getting in there with Nissa for 2. And taking a look at Reid's hand, it looks like we have a 2, not 1, but 2 Emrakul the Promised End, Shaman the Forgotten Ways, Dragon Lord Atarka, and Grapple with the Past. Wow, here comes Dragon Lord Atarka for Reid.
4 and 1.
Interesting here. I think I saw Reid actually assign 4 damage to Mind Rack Demon and 1 to his own Nissa. Now, the reason he would do that is expressly to keep Mind Rack Demon alive.
5 to the Mind Rack Demon. Sorry about that. No, that's okay.
Okay, it looks like...
It looks like it was maybe a little miscommunication.
Yeah, perhaps.
It's all going to come out in the wash. It's going to make you sacrifice.
Yeah. So Matt's going to go ahead and use it To the Slaughter, and the players have figured out this little miscommunication. An update from one of our back tables. Christian Calcano versus Marcio Carvalho are currently 1-1.
Draw.
So draw step looks like a grapple with a pass for Matt.
Cool fact about Grapple with the Past, it's actually a callback to the art Make a Wish, I think the card was called, from the original Innistrad, where there's a girl with a bear throwing a coin into a well. And now we can see things didn't really work out that
Things
well
didn't
for
really
the,
work
for the
out well
poor
for the
girl
bear.
there. But apparently, well, for the bear or the girl, I think, actually. But you can see she's there recovering her lost bear. Now
What
that
does the original card do?
It has something to do with bringing cards back. I think you flip a coin and bring a card back from the graveyard. Yeah. But yeah, so she's finally reunited with her bear. So a very happy ending to that story.
As most things end very happily in Innistrad, and
Right.
as we have come to find out. Here we go, 5 mana, Dark Petition. And Spell Mastery is online, so let's see what Matt can manage to do with that 3 mana this turn. That is a really cool fact, Ian. I actually had no idea.
Yeah, there's some interesting things in the art if you take a close
There's
look.
probably so many more throwbacks than people realize, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of little Easter eggs in there,
Yeah.
especially in this set. Yeah, if you take a close look at the art, you can discover all kinds of pretty cool things.
So pick the brain here for Matt. Taking a look at Reid's hand. Here it is. Pick the brain, 3 mana. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-land card from it and then exile that card. If you have Delirium,
You actually get all copies.
you actually get all the copies. So,
Yeah.
and we saw that Matt also sideboarded into Infinite Obliteration. He milled that earlier. So it does look like he wants to try to attack some of Reid's. You know, it's a ramp deck, so it's a little soft to discard and the ability to take all your Emrakuls, take your Dragon Lord Atarkas, and then the deck doesn't really do much without those.
Definitely true. So yeah, looked like Matt was able to take both the Emrakuls in Reid's hand. He does have Delirium now at this point. Yeah, so taking both the Emrakuls and searching Reid's library for any additional copies of Emrakul. which puts Reid in a pretty rough spot if Matt can deal with Dragon Lord Atarka.
So looking at Matt's hand, looks like a grapple with a pass and a Dark Petition in hand. So Dark Petition can tutor for any removal spell for that Atarka.
Yep, could find something like a Ruinous Path and then be able to cast that. So it looks like Reid will get in 8 points of damage, dropping Matt down to 6. And now here the question is, can Matt clean up Reid's board before Reid's able to finish him off?
This is great for Reid, though. So if Matt is able to use that the tutor to actually find a removal spell for Atarka, now he has a 6/6. Maybe it's a 6/6, maybe a little bit. About a 6/6. Yeah, there it is. And Matt Sperling being at 6, not a very good life total to be against. So he does have like Hissing Quagmire, which could be on blocking duty to take down the Ulvenwald Hydra.
Yep, unfortunately, it makes things awkward for Matt. He did have the play previously of casting Dark Petition for Ruinous Path and destroying Dragon Lord Atarka, but now if he does that, he leaves himself with not enough mana to also answer the Ulvenwald Hydra. So Matt's options here are reduced to perhaps something like finding an Ishkana and casting it. If he has grapple with the past or something along those lines.
So Matt, considering his options here, taking a look at Reid's hand currently, a Shaman of the Forgotten Ways, a grapple with a past and Hedron Archive. And man, these grapples with a pass have done so much work for all the players we've seen.
Yeah, it's just an incredibly flexible card. And that's, when you're playing at a high-level tournament like this, that's exactly what you want, is a card that's good early game, it's good late game, it gives you tons of options to outplay your opponent or find solutions to difficult problems. Really, really impressed with that card so far here this tournament.
How do you feel this format is shaping out to be so far?
I'm really excited, honestly. We looked through the deck lists a little bit last night and this morning, and yeah, I was super happy. I mean, of course, we were all terrified coming to the tournament,
Yeah.
that Bant Company would just run the show, and that we wouldn't see a lot of innovation here, but it's been exactly the opposite so far from what we've been seeing. And
Yeah.
that'll do it for that match.
Looks like that'll do it. Matt searches his whole deck, doesn't find anything that's going to be able to deal with both those creatures, so Reid is going to take down the match 2-0 over Matt Sperling. We're going to take a look at one of our other matches in the meantime. We still have 2 of them ongoing. Looks like we're going to be taking a look at Christian Calcano versus Marcio Carvalho. So Calcano has brought Band Company, already known, and Marcio Carvalho has brought blue-black zombies to the table.
Ooh, that's really interesting.
That's a spicy one. Did
Yeah.
you guys got to see some of this last round, correct?
We saw a very little bit of Ben Sek playing a blue-black. We were calling it blue-black madness at the time. I'm not sure if Carvalho is on that same list or if this is a different variation. Looks like it is actually a variation here. A lot of similar cards, but you know what? We didn't actually get to see much of the deck last round either. So let's kind of zoom in here and take a look at what's going on.
So we tuned in a little bit too late, but what we just missed was that Haunted Dead coming into play, discarding 2 prized amalgams, and then those 2 prized amalgams coming back because of the
Wow.
spirit trigger.
That is savage.
So some pretty nice synergy with this deck. I think I've seen a lot of dredge out there.
Yeah,
So
there's
dredge
all-
players everywhere can
All kinds
rejoice.
of graveyard shenanigans going on this weekend, that's for sure. Now, what's exciting to me is that this looks like actually a full-fledged zombie deck, and that there's plenty of cool interactions here with the zombie creature type. One of the awesome new cards from Eldritch Moon, of course, being Crypt Breaker, which is a great big reward for playing zombies. Also lets you do cool madness things like discarding prized amalgam. So there's a lot of cool stuff to be had there.
No, I think 3.
Currently, Calcano is sitting at 14, Marcio Carvalho at 20. Collected Company for Christian Calcano this turn. See what he finds. There's a Sylvan Advocate at the top, a Reflector Mage as well. But Marcio's starting to take over this board. The fact that he can just discard the amalgams and get him back, I think absolutely no price. This is a good way to fight company.
Yeah, it sure is. And now, zombies obviously not really a game in the established metagame right now. Sorry, a deck in the established metagame, I should say. But I can say from my experiences playing with the cards internally, the Zombies deck is pretty good at going wide, so to speak, getting lots and lots of permanents on the battlefield, especially when you get something like a Crypt Breaker going or prized amalgam interactions. So that could be one way that Marcio Carvalho could take over this game, is just like getting lots and lots of zombies in play and kind of going wider than Calcano.
Calcano passing back. Oh no, he's not. He's choosing what to bounce. Yeah, it looks like.
M20, right? Yeah.
Calcano's still here considering his options. Looks like Marcio Carvalho is going to draw a card from here, lose 1 life. And back goes the Crypt Breaker to his hand. Two mana, he's going to ultimate prize the Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Down it goes. And pass back to Calcano. Taking a look at Calcano's hand, it looks like there's a Nissa Vastwood Seer, a Spell Queller, and an Elder Deep Fiend.
Oh, that's really interesting. Not something we normally see out of Collected Company decks.
It seems like that's something that could be very good. It's, you know, decks are trying to innovate to beat the mirror. That's pretty good in the mirror.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's sort of, you know, going over the top of what your opponent's doing, both in size and also potentially tapping all their blockers and making a huge attack. So it definitely makes some sense.
The other thing, too, is that you don't expect that out of a Collected Company deck. So there, it definitely has the got you factor, at least in the beginning.
Yep.
Eventually, people will see it if this becomes more of a mainstay. Okay, Calcano gets a Forest from Nissa Vastwood Seer. He goes ahead and plays it. And a pass back to Carvalho. So we see in Carvalho's hand, there's the Voldaren Pariah, which is a pretty good card against these company decks. You know, he has all these little zombies that he made kind of inconsequentially, right? He doesn't really care too much about them, but all of Christian Calcano's creatures are impactful. He spent, you know, they're not incredibly expensive, but he spent quite a bit of mana getting them out there, and with Collected Company also. So it looks like Voldaren Pariah could do some work here for Marcio.
Yeah, this is super cool. I mean, so the Pariah's on the battlefield, and at any moment, Carvalho could sacrifice 3 creatures to transform Voldaren Pariah. And of course, on the other side, when the Pariah transforms, she actually makes Christian Calcano sacrifice 3 creatures as well. So it's kind of a 3 for 3 creature trade. But yeah, as you talked about, Gabby, Carvalho's creatures are a lot more dispensable. Either they can come back from the graveyard or they're easily created as tokens.
An update from one of our back tables. Jeremy Dazani wins the match versus Shaheen Sarani. Here on the right, we can see Voldaren Pariah. Sacrifice 3 other creatures, you transform it. You can also madness it out for 3 black mana. On the other side, it's a 6/5 flyer, and it kills you very fast.
Sure does, yeah.
Forces your opponent to sacrifice 3 of their creatures as well.
I've heard it been compared as like the Black Avacyn in a way, which is it kind of makes sense, right? Because both sides of the battlefield lose 3 creatures each, and then she comes in and hits you for 6. So.
Good thing those amalgams were made for recurring. Untap for Marcio Carvalho. Taking a look at his hand, looks like Crypt Breaker that was bounced back because of the Reflector Mage can actually be recast again here, but Spell Queller is going to say no. Crypt Breaker being one of the engine cards here for Carvalho's deck.
Yeah, definitely smart for Calcano to try to prevent that from entering the battlefield. It looks like this game is going to drag on a little bit further, and if Marcio Carvalho has an unanswered Crypt Breaker, he's going to be drawing a lot of cards and getting way ahead as the game goes long.
So that's going to go ahead and resolve Spell Queller, not letting the Crypt Breaker come to the battlefield. Stitchwing Scub for Carvalho. Entering the battlefield. Another way to discard cards and recur. Another card that's okay to get in the graveyard.
Yeah, it works really well with prized amalgams. Very cool.
So Carvalho here deciding what he can attack with. Also deciding what he wants to do with that pariah.
Yeah, a lot of interesting decisions here, especially with that pariah being able to transform at instant speed. There's a lot to think through in terms of, do I want to get the maximum amount of damage in this turn? Do I want to kind of slow roll it and play a more reactive stance where I can wait and see what Christian Calcano does before I decide whether and how to transform my pariah?
Over there on the right, we can take a look at Stitchwing Scub. A great limited card, and not necessarily something that people were expecting to see here in Constructed. You can discard 2 cards to return it from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Yeah, and that interaction with prized amalgams is just so powerful. I mean, you can even discard the prized amalgams from your hand, and then by the time the ability resolves, the amalgams will be in the graveyard, and we'll see the Scob coming back into play.
The interactions in this deck are great.
Yeah,
it's such an excellently constructed deck.
Looks like the pariah is coming in.
Yeah, dropping down Calcano 210. And Calcano's going to have to figure out a way to deal with this pariah soon. That land from Christian's going to cause that Nissa to transform. Starting out at 3 loyalty. Let's see what he wants to do with it. Pretty vulnerable here to some of the flyers, but it is a very good draw engine. Here you can see the flip side of Delirium Pariah. It's Abolisher of Bloodlines. It's got flying. It's a 6/5. It's big. Whenever this creature transforms into Abolisher of Bloodlines, target opponent sacrifices 3 creatures. So you had to pay the upfront cost of flipping it, and then your opponent has to sacrifice those creatures. If you put a card like this in a shell that doesn't care about sacrificing creatures, then this is all upside.
Looks like there might have been a third prized amalgam picked up this turn for Marcio Carvalho. So this opens up a lot of interesting plays here where, yeah, looks like he's sacrificing the 2 prized amalgams, sending them to the graveyard, and then, we'll be able to bring those back, presumably, pretty easily.
You have how many cards? 3.
Is that a Haunted Dead also that's being sacrificed?
It looks like the Haunted Dead, and, Marcy doesn't really care about getting this in the graveyard. He can discard cards and get them back, and with the amalgam in hand also, pretty easy discard for him. Yeah, so Marcio is activating the pariah.
So what's happening now is the Voldaren Pariah is about to turn into Abolisher of Bloodlines. That'll make Christian Calcano have to sacrifice 3 creatures. And then likely what we'll see after that is Marcio Carvalho activating Haunted Dead's ability from the graveyard, bringing it back onto the battlefield. And that at the end of the turn will trigger all 3 prized amalgams and return those to the battlefield as well.
So Reflector Mage, and Jace Vryn's Prodigy go down for Christian. And if you're Marcio, what considerations do you have when you're trying to transform the Voldaren Pariah? I mean, it's a little scary against the Collected Company deck with 4 mana untapped.
Yeah, it is a little scary. I mean, the card Collected Company could find, say, another Reflector Mage or something like that to bounce your creature in response. But, I think the game is in such a state that it's just time for Marcio to make a move here.
And that he does, it looks like. Calcano is sacrificing that the Sylvan Advocate to tap down all of Carvalho's team.
Very cool.
Wow. Here comes some deep fried octopus.
So this is actually potentially getting a little bit scary here. That's 7 power on the board that Calcano has. All of Carvalho's creatures are tapped right now. Of course, he does have his second main phase to follow up and maybe present some blockers, but, this opens up a window of opportunity where Calcano could maybe set up a race. I think Calcano's in a spot where if he's going to win the game, he needs to win the game very quickly in the face of these powerful creatures and this engine that Marcio Carvalho has assembled.
It does look like he's taking the stance of, I don't have very long in this game. I
Yes.
need to find a window and see what I can do within that
So
time window.
this is sort of double duty as desperation play, and also maybe I could race you, although both options looking kind of unlikely at this point.
So let's see what Carvalho does in the second main phase. He's discarding 2 cards, it seems,
I'm gonna do the token.
to bring back Haunted Dead. And back come all the prized amalgams because he's going to get a spirit as well.
It's my go, right?
So his board is pretty much out of control at this point, but he only has 1 blocker. Looks like a land was just the draw for Christian.
Plus.
The plus, wow. All right, so the plus from Nissa reveals a Reflector Mage. Carvalho here considering his options. He's very close to just being able to alpha attack and destroy.
Yeah, things certainly looking grim here for Christian Calcano. Perhaps if he had several more copies of Elder Deep Fiend or something along those lines. Don't know how many he does have in his deck list. I can't imagine it's too many, being a target that doesn't get hit by Collected Company.
Okay, so in comes the Reflector Mage, bouncing the Stitchwing Scob.
Yeah.
And we're just going to see a pass back to Marcio.
Yeah.
Looks like another Voldaren Pariah.
Yikes. That is a pretty awesome draw, if that is the case.
I'm thinking just.
So he's currently just lighting up blocks to see what would happen in an attack. But like I said, if like you said, if the draw was Pariah, then a lot of options open up here for Marcio.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Marcio plays this a little bit more slowly. He's got to be thinking about something like a Collected Company off the top or a Dromoka's Command. So we may see him make sort of like a half and half attack here where he's not making an alpha strike going for lethal, but he's sending in some things that he's planning to sacrifice to the Pariah later anyway. So just kind of getting in a value attack, chipping in some damage, or maybe taking out a creature where he can, and then following up with the Pariah, sacrificing some things and bringing back the amalgams again.
He's actually opting to go in with a full-on attack here.
Okay.
All right, Calcano, what can you do about this? The other unfortunate thing for Calcano is having that Spell Queller currently hiding a Crypt Breaker. But at some point, this Spell Queller might have to go under the bus.
Yeah, I think it may have to. The window is rapidly closing here for Christian Calcano. Let's take a look at his hand and see what options he does have here. There is a Dromoka's Command in his hand, which can help him maybe sculpt to combat, which would be a little bit better than it otherwise would be. However, he's just under so much pressure right now. I'm not sure, he could put together the best blocks he has and possibly survive the turn, but I don't think he's really going to come out of this attack step in good shape.
All right, so he's lining up some blocks, putting the Spell Queller, it seems, in front of the Spirit, so it's not going to die. The Deep Fiend in front of an Amalgam. He's taking a lot of damage here.
Yeah. Remember that that transformed Voldaren Pariah is actually doing 6 damage, the Abolisher Bloodlines there.
So he's still working through his blocks.
I'll block like that.
So these are Calcano's blocks.
Counter.
Oh, and he's going to Dromoka's Command, put a counter on Reflector Mage so it survives through the Amalgam, and also going to fight that Abolisher of Bloodlines.
You didn't have it. Oh, that's insane. You're so good.
And we hear a little bit of banter between the players. It looks like the Dromoka's Command was unexpected here, so players are going to resolve damage.
That was blocked by the Deep Fiend, and then they fought.
Yeah. So
Take 5, 7.
7. This dies too, right?
Yeah, so he's going to be taking 7 damage total, dropping him down to 3.
One card.
Yeah.
Well, now he has so few creatures that exactly.
Sure.
Now this Voldaren Pariah can come out, and
Go.
if Marcio forces some sacrifices, he's gonna get the Crypt Breaker back too, and he's gonna have a 6/5 on his side of the battlefield.
Yep. And he could do that at any time, really, here. So Christian Calcano just looking to see what the top of his deck shows, and
I
it
knew you had
is
a comment, but
not going to get him out of this
Yeah.
sticky
Yeah,
situation.
Go for it, because
Marcio
if I wait
Carvalho
more,
takes the match
it's
here.
just gonna get worse and worse
And the
from
players
here.
just having some good banter. These are sick games, so
Yeah.
you know the players like to discuss and see what maybe could have happened. Was there a punt anywhere here or there?
Yeah, there were a
Was
lot of interesting decisions that game for sure. And pretty cool decks as well. I mean, that Blue-Black Zombies deck has a lot of neat interactions. It's something we haven't really seen
Yeah.
before, so we'll keep our eyes on that
Yeah, it
one
looks
for
like
sure going
Haunted
forward.
Dead being kind of the glue around some of this, but Amalgam being awesome. Voldaren Pariah doing double duty in a lot of those matches. So
Absolutely.
some sick stuff here in Standard. But we have more Magic coming to you. This is the last match for this round, but we have more Magic coming to you next round. In the meantime, let's see what Rich has for us at the news desk.
Results. The Constructed Master is getting into the swing of things. 2 rounds gone today, mostly. Some people still out there playing. Listen, this format is slow. We're closing in on time on the round. With 10 minutes to go, 75 matches were still going. That's half the field, 40 minutes into a 50-minute round, still playing. Super slow, super sluggish. And you saw really with Calcano against Carvalho there, it's like, well, here's my back company deck. I've got a late game. Oh, I'm Blue Black Zombies. I've got a late game. So we'll see how that pans out as we move along. Winners in this round. Michael Majors up to 69 points in the Constructed Master. Paul Dean up to 69, Reid Duke 69, Seth Manfield 69. That's 3-2 on the weekend for Seth. And Paul Rietzel up to 69. He goes to 4-1 on the weekend, defeating Matt Light of the UK in that last round. Oliver 2 is still playing. He was the leader coming in. If 2 loses, there will be a 6-way tie for the Constructed Master after 2 of the 8 rounds. But out on the floor, Brian David Marshall, he's just finished looking at Paul Cheon against Alexander Hayne, but he's still trying to find more stuff for us. BDM, where are you with your beady roving eye?
All right, we are watching Martin Dang versus Nathaniel Smith. They're in game 3. They have about 10 extra minutes on the board. And let's get a look at the life totals here. It is 20 for Martin Dang to 4 for Nathaniel Smith. And that looks like an Elder Deep Fiend on the attack for Martin Dang. So Nathaniel Smith's going to need to find an answer. He comes up with a Ruinous Path. These guys have about 10 extra minutes in the round. There was I don't know if it was a deck check or whatever, but they have extra 10 minutes. So if this, once time ends, they can still continue playing. And we are over time right now. So they probably have about 7.5, 8.5 minutes left right now.
In the background, you see Alexa Telerov, the Serbian national champion. He's still playing in his match. Christopher Larson in the grey shirt, way in the background, standing next to Shota Yasuoka, the Hall of Famer. In the center of your shot, 2 Hall of Famers. You've got Frank Karsten in the Channel Fireball shirt, sitting next to Rafael Levy, and opposite Frank Karsten, Martin User, who's still live for the Czech Republic World Magic Cup race.
Meanwhile, Nissa has flipped into Nissa Sage Animist. And a Transgress the Mind, another Transgress the Mind takes another Emrakul. And here comes Liliana. This is just how they drew it up when you were doing the inside R&D, right, Rich? Liliana versus Emrakul?
That's right. And also, it was something we talked about, you and I, in the preview. It's like, were people going to find a decent home for Liliana, the last hope? Well, it looks like Nathaniel Smith, here, Silver Pro, certainly has done.
So Traverse the Mind. Traverse the Ulvenwald. This is a card that Ian Duke called Green Sun Zenith, because you basically just go get to find any card in your deck and play it for 1 extra. So that's the same as a Green Sun Zenith for 6 total mana to get Ishkana, the Graph Widow, for Martin Dang. And he puts some spider tokens into play.
So Martin Dang needs a decent finish here, BDM, because he's quite quite a way adrift of Martin Muller for the Denmark captaincy. Muller looks like he's got that pretty close to locked up. And Dang needs a decent finish to try and get one of the European slots or possibly an at-large berth for the World Championship.
Nathaniel's going to need to kill that Graph Widow. He's at 4, so the activated ability on the Graph Widow is going to make short work of him if the game goes many more turns.
Another Pro Tour champion just in the background over BDM's shoulder. We got a little glimpse of Mike Rohn, the Geneva 2007 champion, one of the all-time great team Magic players, along with Rich Hone and Alexander Hayne. He won a Grand Prix. And there's Michael Bonder, one of the new Harry Yuya pros, joining the mix. Come and see how his fellow Dane, Martin Dang, is getting on.
So now we see Dark Petition. And it looks like Nathaniel Smith is choosing between Woodland Bellower and a Planeswalker up next list, but he also, in a flavor fail, is playing Emrakul in his deck.
I can tell you the BDM that Owen Turtenwald is 5-0, having defeated Logan Nettles. So Turtenwald up to 5-0, and depending on what happens with Oliver 2, Owen Turtenwald will lead the Constructed Master after 2 of the 10 rounds.
Of course he will. Okay, using the mana floating from the Dark Petition. Ultimate Price takes out the Graph Widow. About 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes left in the round for these guys.
Mm-hmm.
The match next to them is actually ended in a draw between Alex Johnson and Alexa Teleroff.
And because this is constructed, the tables are arranged in scorecard order, if you will. So you get a good sense that the closer you are to table 1, the better you're doing. The further down, the more you're struggling to make it towards day 2.
I tell you, Nathaniel Smith's deck looks a lot like the Pantheon deck from the last Pro Tour with the Dark Petition Seasons Past combo, and he seems to be lining something up here. He's been looking at his graveyard and making sure he's getting the maximum value from a Seasons Past that's looming in the next couple turns.
Nice.
Luis Scott Vargas at 5-0. Reid Duke is at 5-0 right now. Pascal Maynard of Canada is 5-0, and so is Steve Rubin. Remember, we said that only 3 people could be Player of the Year. Seth Manfield, he didn't have to do anything, just had to make sure that Owen Turtenwald didn't make the top 8 and Steve Rubin didn't win the whole thing. Turtenwald and Rubin, BDM, both at 5-0.
Nathaniel Smith draws a Liliana with Nissa, but then plays Emrakul, the Promised End. And Martin Dang, who's still at 20, just sort of shakes his head, says, sure. Draws a card for the turn. There's a Kozilek's Return in his hand, 2 lands. And he has the 3 spiders in play. Nathaniel looks for the most painful way to tap Martin Dang's mana. And casts Kozilek's Return to exile those spiders.
Such a beautiful card, Emrakul, the Promised End, because it doesn't quite do everything, but it sure does a lot.
And Martin Dang passes the turn back. He takes his extra turn after Nathaniel Smith took his turn. And now he has to face down Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn. It's 19 to Martin Dang for 4 for Nathaniel Smith.
That's
Remember,
the
he took that
Promised
1
End,
point
right,
of damage.
BDM? Emrakul, the Promised End?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say Aeon's Torn? Sorry.
We forgive you.
Ticks up Nissa. Hits a land.
So if I asked you right now, BDM, would you be prepared to say that Emrakul will be the promised end and will make it into the top 8 of this Pro Tour? Are we going to see Emrakul all the way to Sunday?
Absolutely. We may see more Emrakuls than we see collected companies in the top 8 at this point.
Wow. In the distance, get a little glimpse of Magnus Lanto, a teammate of Martin Dang. He is in the contention for World Magic Cup race in Sweden, 8 points behind Joe Larson. The door is open. Joe Larson opened up 1 and 3, not sure this round yet, but Lanto 3 and 2, so not quite setting the building on fire just yet.
After that attack, Martin Dang falls to 2. Seasons pass from Nathaniel Smith, gets a Transgress the Mind back among other cards. And then plays a face-down card. And there's the hand. Martin Dang was at 20. Nathaniel Smith was at 4. But Emrakul was able to turn that game around. Nathaniel Smith wins 2-1 over Martin Dang. Rich, we're sending it back to you at the news desk.
BDM, thanks so much for that great stuff. Glad to give you some bonus magic from right deep in the trenches, in the tables in the 20s there. Martin Dang didn't get the job done. Nathaniel Smith advances there. So I can tell you Oliver Tu's result is in. He's won, so he is back in the lead for the Constructed Master. 72 points, leads Owen Turtenwald by a draw, essentially 2 points clear, and then a rose gallery of Michael Majors, Paul Dean, Reid Duke, Seth Manfield, and Paul Rietzel on 69. But boy, oh boy, Owen Turtenwald and Steve Rubin, they are making Seth Manfield sweat, and how. 5-0 perfect records, 3-2 for Manfield. 3-2, well, start developing that across to 6-4, to 9-6, 9-7. Seth Manfield not on pace to get much more than his 3 pure points for turning up and playing. So maybe the door is ajar for Player of the Year. Still a long, long, long way to go. But it's Deck Tech time over at the video wall. Our Hall of Famer Randy Buehler is waiting patiently with one of my favorite guys in Magic. Let's hear all about Black White with Dan Ward.